understanding it. And I mean, I don't want to mislead parents out there that you're going to do this and tomorrow everything's going to be better. It's a process that happens over time. But the more you are able to have those moments where you can model it, you build trust. They may still tell you white lies for a while, but once you get there, unfortunately, and I'm just going to share this from my own personal experience, a lot of the stuff that I had my son first and my daughter second, they're both neurodiverse, but we parented the way we were parented, right? And I don't know, it was just my way or the highway was a lot of the parenting that both my husband and I got. And that's not going to always work with kids who really just truly are not capable of doing certain things at the same time as their neurotypical peers. And so for years, we were pushing until we started to understand better and sadly went through some pretty difficult times. But once you build that trust over time, your relationship with your kids changes so much in such a positive way. They share with you, they don't lie about bad choices, they call you when they've made a bad choice. I mean, the benefits are, I wish I had discovered it sooner. And so I hope that parents who are watching this it's not easy, right? But it's worth the investment of understanding it and trying to manage your own emotions on a regular basis because it will pay back in spades later on.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, this is kind of a pre-installed software that we have, or hardware really, with some software on top of it, if you want to look at it that way. The brainstem is the hardware and the software is the triggers that take us into that. And I like the point that you brought up about if we're not careful, we go into autopilot ourselves, which is how we were parented. Essentially, if we're not
Mm-hmm.
paying attention at all, we will revert back under stress to the same kind of techniques that were used on us or against us or for us, whatever, depending. Sometimes it's all good. Sometimes it's good stuff. I don't want to say it's all bad. We might revert to some good parenting that our parents did. But yeah, we will fall into that unless we're really paying attention. And that's where that automatic software that's installed was us watching how we were parented or recording that or whatever, right? It's this program that's in there that if we're not paying attention, that's what we'll go to when we're in the moment. And again, like I said, sometimes it can be good. Our parents probably did a lot of good things too, but they weren't likely. Well, when I say this, I mean, maybe some of us are neurodivergent as parents too. So I don't want to rule you out, but they're probably using very traditional parenting techniques in terms of holding consequences and using fear sometimes to get us to do what we're supposed to do or not do. And that's one thing I hear from parents all the time. Man, if I would have said that to my mom or dad, I would have been like dead or something. They would have just kicked me right out of the house or bad things would have happened. And really, you can't do that with a neurodivergent kid because they are operating, they're not processing the world the same way. So the same techniques are not going to be effective. In fact, they can be very harmful and damaging and can backfire for sure.
Can I add something there?
Please.
One of the things that I think a lot about with both of my kids is that they get a lot of negative messages from the rest of the world. At school, everybody's telling them to, you have ADHD, sit down, be quiet, do this, do that. So they get all that at school and then they come home and they get it from you. It doesn't mean that you have to let them get away with everything either. It just means they just need to be handled a little bit differently. And that's something that I wish I had known. My kids would always come home from school and have huge meltdowns. And I was like, what is your story? And I was tired. I came home from work. I had to make dinner. I didn't really feel like dealing with blah, 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 blah. But once I started to understand how much it took for both of them just to survive that day from everything and you're getting all this negative messaging, it really made a difference in the way I handled them. I didn't take the meltdowns as a personal affront. You know what? So what? So you eat out. Fine. I'm not cooking tonight. Whatever. Not everybody can do that all the time. I get that, but you do the best you can in the moment. But that again is so important in terms of building trust, because if they're hearing the same negative messaging from you that they're hearing from their school and everyone else. And as a parent, I will say one of the biggest challenges I had too was, you're out at a playground or something and your kid hits another kid, right? And they're, all the parents are looking at you like you're some horrible person your kid just got dysregulated. Sorry, You do what you have to do. For a long time, I listened to everybody else telling me, well, you should be doing this and you should be doing that. Well, it worked with their kids. Their kids were neurotypical. It's not going to work with mine. So I got out
Right.
of that developmental derby very early on. If you know you have a neurodiverse kid, get out of that derby because it'll make you do things to please other people. It's just not worth it.
Yeah, I love that term. How'd you say that?
Developmental derby.
Developmental derby.
Well, my
Yes,
kid's reading
let's
three
coin that
books.
term.
Is your
That is
kid
awesome.
reading yet? You know, that kind of
Right,
stuff. And you're just like,
right.
come on. Like, can we not just be supportive of each other? I understand everybody's insecure, but that's why you're saying that to me. You're not saying that to me because
Yeah, like
you're
somehow
proud of
they're
your
like, hey, I'm a good parent, you're a bad parent,
right.
right? That's
You
what it looks
suck.
like. If your ego's tied up in how your kids behave, then you're in trouble already because I swear, neurotypical or not, they will sense that and they will go against everything you want them to do just to,
Yep. Never say your kid won't do something because here they come nevering like they've
yes, yeah,
nevered
exactly.
before or
It's
whatever the
want to
saying
not
is.
do not curse yourself or forecast like that because
Yeah.
it will come back to bite you. Yeah, that judge not less to be judged, right? It tends to come back. So,
Yep. It sure does.
but like you said, get out of that developmental derby because you're not in the same, you're in a different ballpark. And it's not necessarily a bad one, it's a different one. And why I want to just keep doing this and keep doing this is for that reason. If parents understand what's happening, then they can respond logically. I mean, I think parents are responding logically to their neurodiverse kids with neurotypical parenting, but it's just not right for their brain structure or their brain, the way that their brain processes. So that is just so important. I don't know how else to say it, that if you can learn about it, understand what's happening, then you can respond appropriately and respond in a way that's going to be helpful, not reinforcing what they're getting out there in the neurotypical world. Because again, back to that software idea, if they're getting that all the time, that's the software that's getting written for them. That's how they're going to feel about themselves. That's how they're going to see the world. That's how they're going to perceive themselves. So, like you're saying, if we're reproducing those same patterns at home that they're getting at school or out in the world or in their jobs or wherever they are, we're then contributing to the problem, right? We're not understanding their uniqueness. We're not helping support it and helping them find ways to be successful in this world that's not necessarily built for them culturally anyway. So, we need to help them learn to navigate that and appreciate their differences and find their strengths and do the best they can to get down the road ways, but they're in a different race, so to speak. And it's not really a race, right? Because even that's all crazy. We talk about what we do in terms of what a traditional trajectory for a kid should look like 12 years of school, then another 4 years of college, and then a job that they work for 40 years and then they retire. I mean, like this is just it's all stuff we made up, right? It's kind of how our culture works, but it's not necessarily how it has to be or how it even should be. It's just what we do. So I like parents to take a step back and just say, okay, why are we so concerned that our son is wearing the same hoodie for the last 2 or 3 days? There might be some social ramifications of that, but is it really worth getting into a big battle over? Sometimes it does need to be talked about and addressed, but if you understand the neurodiversity and you maybe can find some ways to come up with strategies to rotate stuff. I want to get into the weeds on that. So it's not that you don't address it, but you don't approach it from the same framework. So
Right. You don't look at
uh,
them and say, "Oh, everyone's going to think you're dirty and a loser if you wear the same sweatshirt." But sometimes stuff just does come out like that, right? You're
yeah,
trying to
yeah,
help
yeah.
them figure out how to navigate the world, but there's probably a more positive way to do it.
Right. Or in your own mind, you're embarrassed again, back to that same rat race
Yeah.
where you're thinking other parents are going to think I don't take care of my kids or that I think this is okay. That's where parents get in trouble. They feel like it's a reflection on their parenting. And to a certain degree, some of that is somewhat based in truth, right? But our children are their own souls, right? They've got their own minds, they got their own ways of doing things, they have their own personalities, and they're going to do things their way a lot of times. And so our job is just to help guide them down that path best we can and understanding their neurodivergence and how it applies in their specific situation. The best you can as a parent, try to become an expert on your own kid and understand what's going on there, and then learn some strategies and some ways to help them navigate and help them learn the life skills. Because again, we keep hitting the same drum, but it's not that you let things go, it's just how you might approach them. So it's not that you don't hold boundaries, but you find a different way to hold those boundaries. And you work much more with them and try to help them learn the skills they need to learn, but also understanding that some things are going to be more difficult for them than it is for other kids. But They may be really, really talented at things that other kids just can't do. So sometimes it's just a matter of finding what those strengths are.
Right.